I'm starting my GarageBand Creator series by talking to an artist who has released an album created 100% in GarageBand. Let's go. So today I'm talking with Patrick Moonbird, who has just released a debut album titled Useless, created 100% in GarageBand in iOS. Hey, Patrick, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for joining me here on Studio Live today. Now, this series is all about helping other GarageBand creators. And since you've been through this journey over, I'm assuming, months, years to get these songs together and this created, do
Yeah.
you want to start by just telling us a little bit about how you got to this point, your music background, and how you reached this point where you're releasing an album that you've created here?
Well, I think it all started when I was growing up. I grew up in a musical family. My dad played guitar, my sister sang and played piano, so I just really wanted to start learning how to play guitar.
Yeah.
And then over time, I started making a band, and that didn't really work out. And then I realized I could make my own band with GarageBand, and that was my absolute favorite part. So I went and bought. That was before it was standard on your iPhone to
Yep.
free. I had to go buy it.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got my iPhone, I went to go buy it and started the whole journey right there.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, so musical background, musical family, been playing music for a long time, and did the playing in bands thing and that sort of thing, and then yeah, I guess realized that you could be your own one man band.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. So like me, you had to pay. So a lot of folks don't know they're using GarageBand for free, but yeah, originally I think I had to pay $8 way back in the day to get GarageBand, and then they made it free. So apart from that, so what sort of got you into creating? So obviously you buy and you download this GarageBand app. What was your starting point like? What got you starting creating in GarageBand?
I think what made me want to start was the flexibility that I could just like whenever I want, just start
Yeah.
recording, and it was like the most freeing and releasing kind of thing. And then I was just recording just audio tracks. Wasn't using the MIDI instruments because I was so scared of them. I was all brand new territory. So I wrote a song, put drums on it. I never knew about quantizing, and it sounded like complete crap. It was horrible. But then over time, I started realizing the click track is there for a reason. It's to help you with your drums. So as soon as I figured that out, it just took off, and I just started writing and writing and writing.
Awesome, yeah, and yeah, we're both part of a group, the GarageBand Users Facebook group, where
Yeah.
we share and get a lot of tips and tricks about GarageBand. And you've been sharing a lot of your music, and I think, how would you define your style? Because I kind of call your album lo-fi, hip hop. I don't know what do you call the sort of music you produce, or is it an eclectic mix of music you got there?
Um, it's really hard to say because I merge a lot of styles with my playing.
Yeah.
I started off playing like rock and metal and all those kind of things, and then over time started to like the softer, more jazzy kind of sounding songs.
Yeah.
So I think the way how I would describe my music would be lo-fi, but a different interpretation of lo-fi.
Mm. Yeah, and I must admit, I've listened to some of your tracks, and I'm like, yeah, that's classic old school sort of, well, not old school. Lo-fi is kind of new, but kind of old. It's a bit weird, but yeah, the more
Yeah.
classic lo-fi sound. But then there's some, like, you've got a lot of things that you don't necessarily associate. So you got some really cool guitar tracks in there as well. Obviously, you got some vocal tracks in there too. So it is a mixing and a merging of styles. But I was giving the new album. We've got to give that one a plug. So new album called Useless, available in all the usual places that you can go to. I had to listen to it. So a lot of tracks, so 24 tracks, nearly an hour's worth of music. How long was the creation process? So how long has this album been in the works?
I would say about a year. Yeah, about a year by now.
Hmm.
It started off with me experimenting. I wrote one song, I think it was called Lo-Fi Cafe,
Yeah.
which is on the album. And I wrote that one, and I was thinking, well, I'll probably never come back to it.
Yeah.
And then the next day, or I guess the next week, I wrote another piano piece, and I realized that's lo-fi. I should probably start accumulating lo-fi songs.
Yeah.
And then over time, I just had a whole bunch. I still have more on my iPad I haven't released yet.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think I have like 8 other songs, but I didn't want to make a 28 or 28, it's like 30 track album. I think that 23 was already crazy.
Yeah, well, and it was like I was listening to this, and I'm like, oh, here's some tracks, and I remember your first single called "Dear Me," which is a classic song, and I remember listening to that one, and that's on the album here. And then just like you've been sharing a lot of tracks, obviously, and I've been following along with the tracks you share, but I didn't realize just quite how many that you'd put together. And one of the great things I love about the album is obviously it combines a bunch of different sounds. It showcases what GarageBand can do, because a lot of folks think about GarageBand and they think it's EDM. It's a bunch of loops, a bunch of samples, a bunch of beats, and then you put them all together and you create an EDM track. So your track, and one of the most interesting things about the album is how the tracks work together. So it's very much telling a story, and you've got you've got samples and vibes at the end of one song, and you merge them over and they start the next song. So how did you approach that? That must have been a pretty tricky thing to get done.
Yeah, it was, and some of it was accidental. I didn't realize that I used one sample at the ending of a song, and then the next sample just happened to be perfectly that sample. And I found it when I was making a playlist on YouTube, and I put one song right after the other, and I realized those samples merged together, and I was like, "That's beautiful. That has to be on the album."
Well, it works a treat, and it's great because it's a sort of album. I love the lo-fi sound, because like there's a heap of these YouTube channels now that have popped up, like the 24/7 lo-fi. And if I'm working, if I'm writing, if I'm doing some high focus activity, writing a script for a video, I'll sit down and just throw that on. So your album, Sarah, is my new go-to. That will be being played in the background when I'm doing my work and when I'm knuckling down, because it's great to have that. Like it's good. I like a good rock song too that's like right there in your face. But your sort of music, and not to downplay it and say it's background music, but it's just the right sort of music to just put you in that sort of chilled vibe to get other things done as well. So I recommend other folks to if you go to your Spotify's, go to your Google Plays, and stick on Patrick's album, and then you'll be able to relax and unwind and get stuff done and listen to some cool music. Alrighty, so a few more questions here, and we'll sort of wrap it up here. But when did you first start in GarageBand? So you mentioned it must have been a while ago, so because you had to actually buy the app. But how long have you actually been tinkering and creating in GarageBand?
I got it when I got my iPhone 4S, and that was like
old school,
a long time ago. I think maybe 5 to 6 years, something like that.
There you go. So that's and it shows you've definitely honed those skills over time. So you, like me, were back where you had the limited functions, you had no plugins, you had no EQ, you just had to make the best of what you had back in the early days. Very, very cool. And I mean, you may say getting this album released, but what's sort of the proudest moment you've had in creating music and creating, not necessarily in GarageBand, but just in your musical creation so far?
Proudest moment. It's really hard to say. I think my proudest moment is realizing I don't need to be the most richest person, for one, to have a bunch of gear, and just starting to realize that I can create really good music without all this expensive fancy gear. I realized that was my proudest moment, because it's just it's mind-blowing, because everyone thinks, oh, I need the greatest DAWs, I need a Mac computer. And it's like, you can create beautiful songs with just GarageBand. And I'm not downplaying GarageBand, saying that's a horrible. It's wonderful. That's my absolute go-to.
Excellent. And so we'll nerd out for a little bit here, because you did mention some of sort of the gear as well there. So is there obviously you use your phone, you use GarageBand. Is there a go-to piece of gear or a piece of kit that you use, like to record either your vocals or your guitars, that you want to throw out there?
Well, what I was using for my guitars for the whole album was my iRig 2.
Yep.
And that worked. I think I got that like 3 years ago, and it's still going. And it was amazing. And I think that's one of them. And my guitar, it's just it's a crappy PV that I bought for $70, but it still sounds beautiful. So it doesn't matter what gear you have; you can make beautiful music with whatever.
Totally true. And as you probably know, you may know that here on the channel, that's one thing that I'm really passionate about, is that you can create, record, and release your best music, and you'd be absolutely surprised by what you can get done. yeah, with just a little bit of hard work and perseverance, and you don't need the most expensive gear, you don't need the most expensive DAW, you can get it done with what you have. So what would be your tip? So someone's starting out and they're like, oh man, do I have to do, I'm going to grind away for 5 years and before I can get to this sort of level and record and release an album. What's your sort of number one tip if someone came to you right now and said, I want to get started in GarageBand? What's your go-to advice for them?
My go-to advice would be just start. If you don't start, then you're never going to get to where you want to be. If you just keep putting it off, like, oh, I won't write a great song, or you wrote a song and you just never work on it, you're not going to get to where you want to be in the next couple of years. It's practice. Everything in this world needs practice.
Excellent. Yeah, which is good, which is reassuring because, everyone has the ability to do things and repeat things and keep learning and keep getting better and keep trying. So absolutely. Exactly. That's pretty cool. And what about it in general? So have you ever been given advice about music creation, and what's sort of the best piece of advice that perhaps you've been given apart from that? That may be the answer again, about creating music and getting good music out there.
I would say best advice that I've got would be, I think it's honestly from your channel. It's just start creating, start recording. And then when you feel like you have something good, it's good. It's not, you don't need to throw 20 plugins on top of it. You don't need to like make it so complex that it doesn't sound like what it should be. Where like, if it sounds great, it's great. I think that was the greatest advice.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. It's been really fascinating learning about how you put this album together, how you create in GarageBand, and some of the things that you've been doing there. So I encourage folks, is there anywhere that folks can go to check out? Obviously, you can go to your Spotify's and your Google Plays and other places online to check the album. Anywhere you'd like to send folks to check out your music?
Preferably my Facebook page, because I do post all my songs as a video on there, so you don't have to go through a link and all that. It's just all organically on there.
Excellent. Well, there'll be a link to that in the description of this video, as well as a link directly to where you can listen to Patrick's album. Now, the very last question, the title of the album, Useless. Where did this come from? And because I think if people have listened to it, they said this album's far from useless. Any insights into that?
It was a term I kept telling myself, that like everything that I created was useless. But then I realized that it's not useless because everything has a purpose in this world. And I figured that if I titled it Useless, it would reflect my thoughts about it. Because the way how I felt about my music was that it was useless. But now it's kind of funny now because like it's the complete opposite of what I thought it was.
Well, that's and I thought it would be something along those lines, because I mean, my album was called Selfish Aware, and it's I think sometimes we title these albums things that we're sort of thinking in the moment and what kind of motivates and inspires us. But I just wanted to reassure that I'm sure you don't think that the album's useless, and it's far from it. And from the feedback and reviews I've heard so far, in my opinion, it's an awesome album. So I wanted to thank you again, Patrick, for your time here today. Check out the links below if you want to check out Patrick's music. Keep creating, and thanks again for being here on Studio Live today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Patrick for joining me in this very first GarageBand Creator Series video. If you'd like to see more of these videos and learn from more GarageBand creators, make sure you let me know down in the comments. And while you're down there, check out the description for the links to Patrick's album and all of his social media links as well. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.